Fellow fighters, we must mark this 7th anniversary of the EFF by committing ourselves to the struggle for the emancipation of Africa from the chains of colonialism. We must never get tired of fighting narrow nationalism that seeks to make African people fight each other and make us ignore the true enemy which controls the wealth of this continent and exploits all African people. It can never be the fault of a poor person that you are poor. It can never be the fault of exploited African that you are unemployed. The only way we can change the racist system which treats Africans like servants who must fight over crumbs is if we unite. We must disregard colonial borders that were put in place to divide us. We must unite to build an integrated African economy and achieve the vision of Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, Julius Nyerere, Kwame Nkrumah of an independent Africa. We must unite to build a continental economic emancipation movement that will develop African economy and liberate Africa from the chains of imperialism. Comrades, in May 2020, we celebrated 57 years since the formation of Organization of Africa Unity. While the OAU is celebrated, we should all admit that the African continent is still not united. Almost all, if not all, African countries are still economically tied to their former colonizers. All African countries are still neo-colonial entities with no true independence and sovereignty, which they said must be guarded when the OAU was founded. We owe an apology to Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, and many others of those who said Africa must unite or perish. Our call for the unification of the African continent, as demanded by Kwame Nkrumah and all progressive Pan-Africanists, remains. We are unapologetic and unwavering in the call for the unification of the African continent because as long as we remain with this unavailable small African state, then we'll never succeed. We will continue to be in the state of underdevelopment and poverty. If the African continent does not unite, we will continue under a neo-colonial system where our resources are exploited by the Western powers and recently China. We call on all progressive formations in the continent to unite in a continental-wide economic emancipation movement that upholds the spirit of Pan-Africanism. EFF is willing to support and associate with formation in all parts of the African continent which believe in the following values: commitment to Pan-Africanism, which aims to ultimately integrate the African continent; commitment to the African agenda defined by the return of the land, mineral resources, and economic wealth to the ownership and the control of Africans; commitment to human rights and gender equality, including commitment to reject homophobia; no association with imperialist forces in terms of political agenda and funding; commitment to democracy and regular elections; commitment to progressive internationalism; commitment to the 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars in the founding manifesto of the EFF in South Africa. We need to build a Pan-African movement that must contest and win elections in different parts of the African continent. There is currently not a single head of state and government in the entire African continent who is committed to the principle of Pan-Africanism. The African Union is a useless structure that has no capacity to provide decisive leadership in the African continent. We need to start with the building blocks for Pan-African unity, and this must start with adoption of a single African currency. We cannot trade amongst each other using the American dollar. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement must be implemented through a common currency, and that free trade agreement must not be abused by Western and Eastern powers of the world to freely trade in the African continent and later expatriate profits. Africa must build its own industries and trade amongst each other on areas of strategic economic importance and advantage. Comrades, we need to guard and protect the EFF against reactionary forces who now realize the staying power of the organization and want to destroy its leadership. In the same way, they killed Bambata, Steve Biko, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Robert Sobukwe, and all progressive forces in the world. The establishment will continue to tarnish the EFF and its leaders because we stand for the truth and the emancipation of our people. The white capitalist establishment has a mind of a rat and opportunistically believe that our call for equality between races and classes is a call for oppression of white people. We must never retreat, even in the face of adversity and hatred. Let us not be scared to speak truth, even when it is not fashionable to do so. Let us fight, comrades. Fighters must occupy every street. Fighters must be everywhere with the poor masses of our people. You are not a fighter if you do not live amongst the poor masses of our people. Let us continue to fight and liberate women of South Africa, because there is no total freedom and total liberation without the liberation of our women. Our women are suffering the most, especially now under these difficult conditions of COVID-19. The people who are at the receiving end of this COVID-19 are our mothers and our sisters. Fighters, let us be with them. Let us support them. Let us protect them. Let us join them in the struggle to demand and reclaim their dignity. We are the EFF of women, of African women, of the rejected women, of the working class women. We belong to our women. This EFF is nothing without women. Fighters, we come from very far. The leadership that is elected at the Second National People's Assembly must agitate for the complete unification of African continent, which will include one currency for all the countries of the continent, one reserve bank, which will be empowered to formulate, implement monetary policy, promote financial stability, issue banknotes, and provide banking services to governments. The EFF must agitate for a united African continent with one federal government, one federal army, and affirm the higher authority of Pan-African Parliament as the ultimate legislative body for the continental matters. The EFF must agitate for the establishment of a permanent African Defense Force. This force must be deployed to defend the continent against the outside interference from imperialist forces, to be deployed to remove undemocratic governments from power on the African continent, and to be deployed to quickly quell unjustified insurrections by terrorist groups and sponsored groups seeking to destabilize the continent. The economic freedom fighters should particularly campaign for the discontinuation of the U.S. military base in the various parts of the African continent. The EFF in the national and provincial legislatures and in its political programs must fight against any attempts at recolonizing Africa through trade deals and bilateral agreements that seeks to impose imperial control over South Africa and the continent at large. We are children of Winnie Mandela. We are children of Madinore. We are children of Queen Mujaji. We were born of very strong women, fearless women. And therefore, we cannot be a generation of cowards. We need to follow in the footsteps of those who came before us. You must never be shaken. Leaders must always be attacked, and our leaders will always be attacked. Our movement will always be attacked. It is how leaders respond to that attack which will show the character of leadership. There is no leader who must behave like a coward when under attack. When you are a leader and you are under attack, that's where you must show the true fearless character of leadership. Leaders in the EFF are not in competition with each other. There is no leader who's better than the other. We are all equal and are all the same. We are here to serve our people. For as long as the land remains in the hands of the white minorities, we will never rest. We want the land to be returned into the hands of the rightful owners. We are here for that. We are not here to serve our own egos. We are not here to demonstrate that I know better than the other. We are not here to undermine the unity and the discipline of our organization. We are here to serve the poor women of Venda, the poor women of Umtata, the poor women of Umlas, the poor women of Guguletu. All of those women, when they see the red beret, they see a sign of hope. And it is through unity of leadership, commitment, and hard work that these people will be liberated one day. Let us fight and build a stronger organization, a stronger EFF that will live forever. From today onwards, we are fighting towards 10 years of the EFF. In everything else you do, as a fighter, as a leader of the EFF, you must always say, I do this towards the decade of the EFF. I want a more powerful EFF when it turns 10 years. That's what you need to tell yourself as a ground force. I'm working towards 10 years of the EFF, and I want to build a more solid and a more powerful organization. They said we will never spend a year. After a year, they said they will never go to a conference and elect leadership. After we did that, they said they will never increase their votes. After we said that, they said we are going to kill each other at our second People's Assembly. Look at us now. We are the only organization of thinkers in South Africa. The rest are organizations of amoebas, following each other into darkness like Casey and Jojo. We don't have time for that. We are leading through superior logic. We are not prophets. Stop saying to us, to our people, that we are prophets. We are not prophets. We are thinkers. We are guided by superior logic. Everyone who think and think deeply can think about these issues that we always advocate for in South Africa. So we want this superior logic to go into government. And towards 10 years of the existence of the EFF, we must fight to win the elections. We must take over government and show people what EFF is made of. Fellow fighters, leaders, the people of South Africa, today we are unable to celebrate the birthday of the EFF because of this COVID-19. We ask that all of you today, you must dress in black and observe a moment of silence in solidarity with those who have passed on. We must pray for the recovery of those who are sick, because South Africa and the continent of Africa still needs them. All of us who are not sick, let us observe the World Health Organization protocols. Let us wash our hands regularly. Let us wear masks. Let us engage in social distancing. Please, fighters, please, South Africans, don't allow families to visit you. Even if it's your mother, even if it's your father, even if it's your siblings, we are in a difficult situation.